there was kind of a trend that in-depth studies, maybe less interest in the last few years, but now I see there's a lot of interest, so I'm very happy to see that. And that's also a sign of being extremely fortunate. Yeah, so the BP is kind of incredible kind of program to get a very good understanding of the Buddhist teaching. Yeah, so one of the main aspects of the Buddhist teachings is to generate correct motivation or intention. And it says on the schedule of prayers, but maybe just generate correct motivation while we're here in order to discuss the things of this 5-year program for a particular purpose, right? So why are we studying these kind of in-depth aspects of Buddhism? Basically for the purpose to eliminate suffering of self and others. Yeah, so we're going to talk about mind science, we're going to talk about philosophy, and we're going to go into a little bit more depth of those aspects all the way up to the stages of nirvana and enlightenment. Yeah, so for that purpose, we have to motivate ourselves in a particular way. I think most of you are already familiar with the Lamrim, yeah, the stages of the path to enlightenment to a certain extent. So I try to think in those lines that we're here together in order to understand why are we together for engaging in this in-depth studies in order to put it into practice, and well, for the benefits of eliminating suffering for oneself and eliminating the suffering of others in accordance with renunciation and bodhicitta. And then also for the purpose of understanding reality. Yeah? So without understanding reality, we will not be able to even have a happier human life and not even able to achieve those states of nirvana and enlightenment. So for that purpose, we're here to understand it. So maybe just for half a minute, just think that we're here for a particular purpose, and that's to eliminate suffering for self and others. And that's why we're going to discuss if this BP program is the right way to move forward. Yeah, so try to generate the motivation for yourself. All right, so basic program, it says still basic, but actually for an average person in the West, I think it's quite in-depth kind of study of the Buddhist path to enlightenment. Yeah, so the Buddhist teachings has different aspects. Yeah? We have universal aspects and we have aspects of the Buddhist practitioner, so to say. So that means that there are aspects of a universal way to discuss the teachings of the Buddha, and that's in relation with the scientific aspects of it, like mind science, psychology, as well as the philosophical aspects of Buddhism. They can also be studied in a universal way, right? So those two aspects we're going to study in depth in this program as well. So that means that not only it will benefit yourself, but later on you will able, by having this fundamental understanding of Buddhism, to help others more on different levels, right? So not only on the level for the Buddhist practitioner, but also on the levels that is needed in modern society, right? On the levels of the universal aspects of how do we look at problems, or how do we look at problems with the mind? What are destructive emotions, and how do we get rid of those? You know, so those aspects will be covered as well. Then on top of that, we also, next to these two secular or universal, so to say, aspects of psychology and philosophy, then we go into, you know, the aspects of the Buddhist path, yeah, because the basic program is referring to the basic understandings of the Buddhist path to enlightenment. Yeah, so just in accordance with our motivation, we talked about the Lamrim, or the stages of the path to enlightenment. So these teachings of the Buddha started with the Buddha himself, yeah, moved out of compassion. He taught these teachings, and then they were being examined by the scholars of Nalanda, and then came all the way down to the power of different masters to Tibet. And that's why we're very fortunate to have this incredible, rich Nalanda tradition present until the present day, thanks to the kindness of the Tibetans. In this particular tradition, we mainly focus upon the Tibetan tradition, though throughout the course I will bring in things from science, because my interest also lays in that field quite a bit, as well as bringing things for other traditions, yeah? So like the Theravada tradition, Buddhist philosophy, etc. So these teachings of the Buddha, examined by the teachings or the teachers and the different scholars of Nalanda, is a vast amount of teachings. Yeah? So you can study it day and night until you die. Basically, if you look behind me, you see a few scriptures here, texts. We have them taken out of the cabinet because we're reading. It's the Sakadava, or the holy month of Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and parinirvana. So seeing that as auspiciousness, then every day we read a little bit. So I was reading a little bit of the scriptures, and it's very interesting material, you know. And what is even more interesting is a program like the BP actually gives an incredible summary of this complete teachings of the Buddha. Yeah? So if you see, the amount of volumes behind me is about 300 in total, and they're not all that easy to be read, you know. So thanks to the kindness of masters like Atisha and Lama Tsongkhapa, who compiled kind of text, which is called Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, or the Lamrim. Yeah? So that actually summarizes the whole Buddhist path to enlightenment, yeah? From scratch until full completion. So that is basically the core essence of the basic program as well, because we're going to start with Lama Tsongkhapa's middle length of the Lamrim. And by going through that text, we will deal with many different aspects of philosophy, psychology. So those aspects have been dealt with as well. That first we go to the first section of the Lamrim, then we go into an introduction in how the view of reality is being presented according to the tenets. And then we go into more in-depth, what is actually ultimate reality. Yeah? So we will guide you in a kind of proper way through these kind of understandings of the Buddhist teachings of this path to enlightenment. And then, as I said before, in order to understand how to develop our mind, then it's also very crucial to get a good understanding of our consciousness. What are constructive emotions? What are destructive emotions? How do I deal with those things on a day-to-day basis? As well as how can I get the realizations of a deeper understanding? Yeah? So that will be dealt with a subject called awareness and knowers. Yeah? And in a similar way, in order to develop the mind, we have to know also what is possible. What are the potentials within us? You know, we have these destructive emotions. We also have a lot of very good qualities, yeah? Or the potentials, or the constructive emotions. So even more than that, we have a kind of Buddha potential. So there's also one subject will go over these aspects of our development and the possibility to develop with regards to Buddha potential. And then next to those aspects, we study in the Lamrim also the Bodhisattva ideal, right? How to generate a kind heart and how to put it into practice in relation to others, because we're all social human beings, so it's important to know how to act in particular ways in society, with our relationships and as well as with friends and families, and how to take everything in daily life, you know, into the practice. So it doesn't mean that to study BP that you have to disappear and find a cave somewhere far away and then have a Zoom around the cave, something like that. You know, it's not. In modern society, we have to be realistic. You know, so for me, initially, I was in this, you know, monastic university for 20 years, 2 decades, and then I end up in this kind of city, like the capital of the UK, in the capital of England, London, right? So then it's a kind of a change you can imagine in life. Yeah? So that means that for most people on the other side of the screen, they don't have the time to live like, or capacity to live like Milarepa, right? Though at the end of the course, we will help you to set up retreats. So we help you to let you structure, you know, weekend retreats or weeks retreats, or at the completion, like a few weeks at a time or even a month at a time. So we help you in those kind of structures. Yeah? So though it is online, as when Fabienne already said, it is for me also completely new. You know, I think for most people, because you're there and I'm here. Even Fabienne is actually sitting in the library and I'm sitting in the temple. You know? So it's kind of different than this morning also when I was giving a talk in Nalanda in France. It's very difficult also for the teacher if you don't see the participants. You know? Then it's very difficult to relate to. Normally you have to see the faces, so then I know it's time for a joke or a story, or, you know, juice it up, as we say, you know, to juice up the material a little bit more. So that's a little bit of a challenge. Another challenge is that you in your room, I'm here. Right? So to enhance the connectivity or the family feeling, so to say, then as when Fabienne already announced, we will have next to the regular program, we have kind of teacher assistants, you know, who already graduated in the past, who have their own experience, who live a life like you know, and who know how to apply these things in daily life, as well as know how to help you with question and answer sessions, how to structure your meditation, etc., etc. Yeah. Then also from my side, I'm also happy to dedicate some more time. People who live in different time zones, or people who are a particular group, a particular center, or study group whatsoever. So next to the regular program meetings on the side, we can also meet and have a discussion, or question and answer session, or exchange experience, so to say. So in that way, it becomes a little bit more than just an online kind of activity. Yeah, so we become kind of yeah, family member. But I just go back to where I started this with, is when I came back for 20 years in the monastery here in London. You can imagine it's quite, I mean, some people think maybe a culture shock or something like that, but thanks to the incredible team we have here in Jamyang, it's yeah, within I think within a week or 2 weeks, I felt completely at home. So I think that's good to know that we have an incredible supportive team as well to help you to go through this program. So we talked about the stages of path to enlightenment. We talked about the tenets, right, to understand the different views of Buddhist philosophy in order to understand reality. We talked about awareness and knowers to understand the mind. So we talked about, we're going to deal also with Buddha potential. How can I develop this potential I have within me, right? And as well as we're going to touch upon the Bodhisattva Charyavatara in order to put more emphasis on the mind trainings of the Lamrim, yeah, or the Bodhisattva ideal, so to say. And then we conclude the whole program with the Vajrayana. Yeah? So the first subjects has been called is all the sutra based, and then towards the end we have the incredible fortunate vehicle of the Vajrayana. So that concludes the whole basically layout. Yeah, Rona, she will kindly introduce you a little bit more about the structure, how we're going to structure the program with some clear explanations. So for us, for the time being, it's good to know that the basic program, just to be realistic, it's not just, you know, have fun. And of course we're going to have fun, but it's not only kind of, you know, watch the show on the weekends and that's it, right? You have to be realistic. So also from your own side, there should be some effort, you know, in order to understand the Buddhist teachings. If you go back to where I come from, we studied these kind of subjects for 20 years, 6 times a week, you know, and the way we studied in big monastic communities is not like university degree, you know. So that means that when we're studying, when I went to university in the Netherlands, it's slightly different. You know, the university in the Netherlands is kind of a holiday compared to these 20 years of in-depth studies and attending debates and, you know, basically similar to discussions. Yeah. So that all 20 years, people on the other side of the screen probably, they won't be able to commit to 20 years, right? So we know that. So that's why Lama Zopa Rinpoche, together with a few already teachers within the organization, they came down to compromise and to actually give a complete overview of this in-depth study program of 20 years. You know? So it's a very fortunate situation, actually. If you think about 1 weekend a month, right? And then, of course, on the side, you have to study, and then we're going to offer discussion groups, we're going to offer meditations and question and answer sessions, you know. So it's a kind of a little bit commitment from your own side as well. Yeah? If you really want to get a good understanding of the Buddha Dharma, then this course, though it's, you know, it spans over 5 years, but I think definitely, as you probably will hear from those who graduate, also from their experience, it gives an incredible fundamental understanding of the Buddhist teaching, you know, which has great benefits for your own day-to-day life, from your own practice in working towards generating more qualities of mind, and it all the way up to developing the full potential of Buddhahood. You know? So in that way, I'm very fortunate. Really, if you think that this tradition of Nalanda being incredibly preserved by the Tibetans, you know, in this way, including oral transmissions, you know, that's very, very moving. It's kind of, if those who have a little bit idea of the precious human rebirth or studied a little bit of Lam Rim, it's basically the impossible became possible. If you really look at how difficult it is to achieve a precious human rebirth and how difficult it is to do something like this, you know, to put imprints in your mind, though to get realizations, that of course will take time, but at least we're starting with the whole project, right? We put imprints in our mind throughout these 5 years that one day they will ripen, you know? Same when we were in the monastery, in the first years, when language was difficult, you know, and the culture difficult, you know, living with Tibetans who, you know, have different kind of habits than average Westerners, especially when it comes to hygiene and living together in small kind of rooms. So it's quite a challenge to say in the beginning. But then you learn so much, because if you commit yourself to the whole collection of topics, same in the monastery, then certain topics generate more interest in others, right? But all the topics, they actually are part of one whole, you know? So that means that if you do the complete program, then you start to see the puzzle coming together, you know? Because up till the present, I see in many centers, and also when I did some Lam Rim teachings before, that people do all little individual aspects of Buddhism. A little bit of the Four Noble Truths, a little bit of the 12 links, a little bit of bodhicitta, but they never can really put it all together as one uniform kind of incredible system, you know. So that means that this program, you know, though only 5 years, and it asks for a little bit of a commitment, you know, but if you do the complete program, you get incredible understanding of the Buddhist teaching, right? So, and then whatever you do after that, you can relate it perfectly within the Buddhist path. So in that regard, extremely fortunate to have the opportunity to do something like this, though it asks for effort, as I said before, right? And it's not always easy. And when it doesn't look very easy, you just have to don't give up and keep going, because from a Buddhist point of view, you know, if you leave aside those things that are difficult and you only do the things that are easy, then you never move forward, right? So similar way, if somebody never points out our mistakes in ordinary life, and we think we already quite well, you know, developed, then we never increase our development, right? We never become better, you know. So that's why it's important to know that it will be difficult sometimes, yeah, certain aspects, especially tenets and awareness and knowers, yeah, but there's reasons for that. So I have, have some experience of talking with people who went to this kind of subject, so I will juice it up, so to say, a little bit with with some scientific findings as well as with stories, yeah, and relate it back and forth to the path. Yeah, so yeah, that's from my side mainly what I would like to share with you, that in order, if you really want to get a step further in your understanding of the Buddhist path, you know, then during a course like this, commit yourself to like 5 years, though it asks for effort. And next to the weekends, of course, you have to read material, you have to discuss things, but then it starts to come alive, right? So that coming alive will not happen after the first few weekends, yeah. But that, generally speaking, if we complete, you know, the Lam Rim, then we can relate everything in the future we study back to this kind of complete overview of the teachings. Yeah? So that's extremely being preserved, as I said before, and even until the present, we have still a huge amount of masters, you know, who has actually realized these teachings. So it's a very living tradition, so to say, yeah? Including His Holiness Dalai Lama, and a lot of oral transmissions are there, you know, of many important texts, all the way preserved to the present, of these incredible teachings of the basic program as well. You know, so that's very fortunate. You know, really, if you think about how difficult it is to do something like this, just look around you. How many people, even here in the UK, you know, in London or different places in the world, who is really interested in spirituality? There's very few. You know? And then among those who are interested in spirituality, who is really putting some efforts to put it into, study it, examine it, put it into practice is even much less. So the same true for us in Buddhism, though it has universal aspects as well, but to find people who really dedicate to something like this is very rare, from the point of view of number. So, and then the imprints you put in your mind of doing something like this, though you won't be able to get realization straight away or get understanding straight away, but over time, when we move through the subjects, then we go back to relate it back to other subjects, back and forth. Then things start to come alive, and then the insights can come, and then especially at the conclusion, when we do retreat, then it can bring great benefits, very, very incredible benefits. The more you study, the more you can contemplate, and that brings a kind of understanding of the Lamrim. Yeah? And then another thing, last thing I want to say is we will have assessments, kind of exam-like style completion. So when I became a Buddhist monk, having graduated from university, then again in the monastery there were these exams, and we had debate exams, which is very frightening because you have 200-300 questions to prepare, or 200-300 debates to prepare, so to say, and 5 minutes before it's your turn, you have to take one envelope. In that envelope are 2 questions. You can choose one of the 2, and then you have to debate. Not just with your classmates, but with a few classes. So there's hundreds of people watching you and checking if you're saying the right thing or the wrong thing. So it's a kind of incredible challenge, But these exams were so beneficial because a lazy person like me, pushing, to go to review the material. If you review the material at the completion of each subject, you will see you get a better overview. Not only you get a better overview, also previous things you maybe misunderstood, now you get a clear picture of it. And new insights will come in the reviews as well. So that's why we have every year, we have a possibility to review yourself, like in the month of August and the month of December. But then in January and February, then we have guided review sessions, right? So that means you go over the material again, to make it fresh, to get new insights, and this whole play of study and listening to the talks, discussing question and answer sessions, do some contemplations. We will do contemplations together. We structure kind of guided meditations. So that whole kind of process of study, question and answer session, contemplations, a kind of review sessions, a kind of assessments that forces us to study it again. That becomes an incredible, sophisticated system of understanding the Lamrim. Yeah? It's just tools for us to help us, to push us to get understanding before we actually start really serious with the retreats at the completion. Yeah, so there's a few things I have to say. I like to say about that is an incredible system, not only the knowledge you get, but the way it's structured in a way that it will help you to discuss things, it will help you to review things. And we will organize different separate weekends or separate on the side kind of possibilities to discuss things. So then it becomes a kind of a personal touch that is really needed, especially when you have the communication tool as Zoom. That's in order to bring this kind of family approach. I think is very important. Initially in the monastery, everybody is very individual, though you never have time for yourself because you're always surrounded by other human beings. There's no space, there's no own rooms for many years. So there's incredible practice, but we human beings, we need a kind of social aspect of working together. Also when we did Discovering Buddhism here, then especially last year when we still had on campus, and then it was very interesting to see that there was a group forming, like one little family, so to say, 20, 30 people, and that gives so much energy. And then when energy is there, it becomes easy. So as far as the team, same thing. If we all put some effort, then the project of 5 years won't take that much. Of course, work has to be done, from our side, from your side. But if it do it with a team and kind of we have this relationship, then things become easy, So that's, a few, most important things I was planning to share with you. So thank you very much for all your interest. And I hope to see you soon yeah, I hope even to see you sooner. That from the point of view, one more thing, those who are able to come, who live close by, it's always much better to be on campus than to be online, right? It's more personal touch. So when in the, in the coming periods when that's possible again, and there's a possibility for you to attend physically, then I think that's very important, because this tradition, of oral transmissions and traditions of directly, receiving the teachings directly on the foots or in front of the teacher is different than online. Yeah, but those who are not capable of living in different other places of the planet, then of course, then that's why Zoom. I'm just new to Zoom, as I said before, but it's an incredible tool, to share the knowledge with others, which otherwise not possible, right? So also we do here the sutra readings, and every Sunday we connect with the community here of Jamyang, and it's one big family. We gather together. Everybody's in their own living room, but through Zoom we become one family. Read things together, do things together, and it builds a kind of good feeling to do things together, right? So that's also possible with Zoom. Yeah? So, but those who can, of course, attend on campus, then of course better. But yeah, in Zoom we gonna do everything that is needed, yeah, the team and myself, to make it one kind of family feeling for the whole 5 years. And then, yeah, thank you very much for all your interest. And yeah, I hope to see you again. And it's, yeah, very fortunate situation for me also to share some of the knowledge I gained in those 20 years with you. I feel also very fortunate to be able to go through the texts again. So I have opportunity to read, to prepare, to share the knowledge, to discuss things, get maybe new insights. So for me also it's it's a challenge in one way, but a very challenge I'm very happy with. So so that's from my side the things I like to share with you. So thank you very much, and then hope to see you soon. I mean, I see you soon today, of course, doing the question answers. But so thank you very much, and then I give the word back to Fabienne. Yeah, thank you very much for your interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Geshe. And so for those who arrived after the introduction, just a reminder that we do have a Q&A session at the end, so in the second half of the open house. And so those who've started raising your hand, so keep the question in your mind. And then at the end of the session, we'll start the Q&A. So for now, I'm going to pass on to Francesca, who's a BP alumni and has graduated officially 2 days ago, I think. So first of all, congratulations. And so then I'll pass on to you, Francesca, and looking at, here we go. Go ahead, Francesca.
Yeah, I confirm that I have officially graduated a couple of days ago. I did my final retreat here in lockdown in this very room. It's tiny, but you can adjust to anything. But I was just going to say a few things about the BP. I mean, I think I walked into it slightly blind. I live in London, and like many of us, I was doing the FBT, the Foundation of Buddhist Thought, with Geshe Tashi. It was his last campus course. Probably like most of us, wasn't really interested in studying, but started. It was one weekend a month, and then it was coming to an end, and I didn't know what to do with myself because it kind of held my Dharma structure. I didn't really need to think about which courses to do because FBT just sort of sorted that out for me, so I just carried on. And just as we finished that course, it was me and another BPer. We just decided to carry on into the basic program, and we're a little bit shocked because obviously, like Geshe said, it's not basic. It really stretches you, and it's a little bit of a jump actually from FBT. But what I really found was, as somebody who works 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, that slotting into the weekend was really helpful. It's just on weekends. We actually had some more intensive. I think we started with the Heart Sutra as a 6-dayer, And after like 4 days, my brain was hurting. I don't think I'd experienced that before, but I had 3 days of brain ache. But it really does help because you're just learning subjects which you've never gone into that depth before. So I really think that if you are working, it's a really good thing to just slot in. And especially if you are in London, it really helps just to kind of come in and do the campus course, because you make such good friends, and that really helps after you finish the 5 years of studying. You go into the kind of second stage, which is this review, and we didn't know what we were doing, but it was sort of an online forum. And you have these questions to do every day for 3 months, which sounds quite intense, and it was, but we was something highly addictive about it, where we were just, everyone was just studying, writing questions, supporting each other. And actually that was really the stage where, for me, it's really cemented in, and you get the answers each week. So you're encouraged to write questions, so you get the answers in preparation for the exam. But I really found it was really quite balanced and really well structured, the course. So you really get a really good in-depth of everything really, with the kind of 5 years of studying, the review, which is the 3 months of kind of home learning and question and answers, which finishes with the exam. Nothing to worry about with the exam. If you've done the review, the exam just comes naturally. And then you've got the retreats, which is really where you really go quite in depth, and it's a Lambrin retreat. And I mean, as somebody who has a mortgage to pay, my husband is not Buddhist and was kind of shocked at me disappearing for such a long period of time, and I work full time, I really couldn't cope with the thought. I didn't know what to do with the retreat, whether I was going to be able to do it. So I just put it to one side, and it just fell into place. I was able to kind of shift things and move things around, and I was actually able to fulfill the retreat commitment. And it was really worthwhile. I stayed up in one of Land of Joy's, their new retreat hut, over Christmas, and I just took Christmas out because it was just a perfect time, really. And so I do feel that having finished, I'm able to read the texts we've done on my own and do retreats on them. Even this retreat I've just done, I took the Tathagata Essence, the Buddha Nature text, and I was able to read it without any, not too much trouble like I would have done before. So it really helps. And when you're listening to teachings from His Holiness, he's referring to things you've already studied. So it's really quite in depth. But at the same time, I think kind of my advice to myself, who can push myself a bit too much, and to anyone else, is just to keep it joyful. And if all you can do is just show up, which is sometimes all you can do, just keep showing up, because I think the benefit is just keeping at it, and not getting too bogged down. So that would be just make a commitment to just put those days in your diary. And over the 5 years, I only missed one weekend, I think, and I was doing the Mani retreat in Italy, and I decided to take that weekend off. But it was, I just made a commitment that the first thing I did, because we got the dates about a year in advance, so I just put the dates in my calendar, and my whole life had to fit around the basic programs. It was really a priority for 5 years. And so I didn't really get too bogged down in it. So that was my, I made a few notes. And I think, Geshe, I wanted to say that, obviously, I suppose it's too soon to see if I've kind of changed too much. But one of the benefits of just finishing this retreat was I've actually cancelled, realised that watching TV is a complete waste of time. So I've cancelled my Netflix prescription, which is like a TV program, you pay £6. So I think it really came to me in this last retreat that, like, you got precious human rebirth and wasting too much time watching TV. So the first thing I did, I came out and cancelled the telly so I could do a bit of practice in the evening. So it does pay off. It sinks in. So I think that's everything I wanted to say. I've probably rabbited on. I speak very fast, so.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Francesca. I had to laugh when you said about canceling your Netflix time, because I went through a similar experience and also canceling Netflix. But to hear that in the span of 5 years with monthly weekends, you just missed one, it's incredibly inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Great.
And so now we'll pass on to Alison, who's another BP graduate and is also the chair of Jamyang's board, who holds many hats. Over to you, Alison. Oh, and I will, hold on, unmute. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Well, firstly, I need to say I'm actually not a BP graduate because I haven't fulfilled the retreat commitment yet. It's not entirely my fault. I was booked to spend a month in Nepal this spring, which for obvious reasons couldn't happen. But actually, I've always been one of the slow, not very serious students, and I still have a Netflix account. I would say I was not only blind, but also reluctant. I got involved with the Dharma because I wanted to be a better person. I was interested in kindness and compassion. And my hunch was that I was going to achieve that through meditation. So I never planned to spend a lot of time listening to Dharma talks and reading books and studying the philosophical side. But His Holiness Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche both talked about the importance of study, and that it was only through study that we could make realizations stick. You know, we get insights, but they come and go. But if we've really worked with the study, then there's a chance for them to totally transform our lives. And also realizing gradually and reluctantly how conditioned we are by our 21st century Western philosophy, which is very often invisible to us. And so we actually need a structure, and we need discipline to question our assumptions. So anyway, I was reluctantly thinking, all right, I'll do it. And also aware back in 2014 that it seemed a really rare opportunity that it might never come again. And so I'm absolutely thrilled that it has come again for all of you, or some of you, the people who choose to do it, especially with a teacher with Geshe Namdak's unique and extraordinary qualities, you know, his Western educational background and his instinctive, innate understanding of our psychology, but also the 20 years of intense study he's put in the monastery is an incredible combination. And 5 years sounds long. It certainly sounded long, but I do a lot of things for 5 years that aren't meaningful at all. You know, the years just slip by. So I can look back at that and say, actually, this is 5 of the most meaningful years of my life because of the basic program. And Geshe Namdak was talking about the incredible tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, and it's so vast, and this incredible opportunity we have at the moment to study it from people who are either directly studied in Tibet or a 1 degree of separation from that, and that's not going to last. So we have this moment in history where we can do this. And the way the BP is structured, and I'm going to repeat some things here, I think we'll all do a little bit, is it gives you a framework for studying key topics and texts. It kind of takes you by the hand through that framework. And as Geshe Namdak says, from that you get an overview and it all begins to come alive. I was really surprised about how much I loved the revision period. I mean, and even the exam. I mean, again, as a really bad student, I wasn't planning to do the exam. I thought, oh, you know, I've got so many other things to do. And my husband, who's a university professor, said, well, of course you're going to do the exams. I was like, okay, I will. And we had this extraordinary 3 months where we were just all on it the whole time, you know, getting all these messages between ourselves and on our phones. And I decided to let it all come into my general inbox that kind of pushed everything else aside. And just this extraordinary excitement of intellectual inquiry. And I didn't even get that at university, really. And now I'm doing the retreat, I'm doing it in bits. I'm finding this is consolidating for me, really, really important to consolidate it. And again, you know, thinking, oh, I haven't got time to do the retreat. And like, yes, I will do the retreat, I will complete. So the BP is giving me the discipline to actually do it. And I'm finding that I'm continuing to study. It's given me confidence to tackle subjects, to really try and understand them. There's a lot of material online. I find Alex Berzin's Study Buddhism particularly helpful. And there's a sort of a confidence that although the topics in Tibetan Buddhism do seem to be infinite, actually it is possible to get to the bottom of things. You know, tenets can be understood, at least on a superficial level. It can be mastered. And I actually I realized I had some complexes from university that I wasn't bright enough and that I couldn't really understand certain things. And what you find with BP is that it's a great leveler. And you see that the people who do show up and who do read things and who do try and who also do, you know, prayers and things around it to create merit, the understanding begins to come, you know, and that was really interesting for me. And, you know, if I went to say a teaching by His Holiness during the 5 years, which I had the opportunity to do a few times, I actually had insights on a different level. You began to see that His Holiness is teaching on many levels, and that a lot of the references that he makes actually have some resonance for you. You know, you may not exactly be able to pinpoint them, but you can see it just goes deeper. The other thing that Francesca also mentioned is the kind of friendship and community that comes with it, because these teachings are so powerful and they are so transformative. We're swimming against the current. So it's really important, in my experience, to have people who are doing that with you and people to discuss things with. And, you know, a few of us have developed some really deep friendships through doing this. So just to wind up, I was actually on the FPMT board when Lama Zopa Rinpoche proposed this program. And I remember a few of us saying, Rinpoche, it isn't basic. You can't call it the basic program. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche is always very clear about things. And he was like, no, it is the basic program. And now I see it as basic. You know, we're really, it's an amazing opportunity to dip our toes in this great tradition that will, I hope, always be seen as one of the greatest philosophical traditions in the world, kept alive by the Tibetans over 1,000 years when, you know, other parts of the world were losing the capacity to study, or for a decent proportion of the population to study in this depth. So I'd actually been involved with the Dharma for over 25 years when I started doing the basic program, but I would say that it feels like I didn't understand anything at all before. And it's completely changed my relationship to the Dharma, which means it's changed my life. And an analogy that keeps coming up for me is that, you know, if you're having a big meal, special meal, there might be a starter, there might be a main course, and there might be the dessert. And as Geshe mentioned earlier, very often some of us are dipping into different teachings. I mean, we're lucky to have access to them at all, but, you know, we'll study a little bit of this subject and a little bit of that subject. And that's like the starters. And if a Lama comes and gives the incredible blessing of their presence and their teachings, maybe an initiation, that's like the dessert. But it feels to me like the BP is like the main course. And so just from a personal point of view, I can't recommend it enough from that basis. Thank you.
1,000 thank yous, Alison. It's really inspiring to hear you and hear about this experience. And I was thinking, and we're going to pass on to Andras in a moment, but I was thinking that these recordings, to hear you and listen to you and Francesca, when those of us who engage in the basic program and things do get tough, and to listen to these recordings again, because it's really inspiring to give energy and to keep on going. So thank you very much. And now I will pass on to Andras and unmute you. Let's see if this works. Oh, you're still muted. Hold on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Good. Yes, hi. I'm Andras Kondra, and I'm from Budapest, Hungary. I live here. I live in Budapest, and I graduated the basic program last year, completing my third 1-month retreat here from my home in Budapest. And the other two, I did 1 month in Kopan Monastery and one in Bodh Gaya in the Root Institute. And well, when it really was a journey to complete these 5 years with the retreats and with the exams. And before that, I did FBT, the Foundation of Buddhist Thought, and the Lamrim Rinpoche course online, knowing Geshe Tashi also personally previously, but I was unable to travel that much to London. And I was hesitant, as I have a family, 3 kids, I have a full-time job, living in Budapest. How is it gonna work out doing a campus course for 5 years? And then eventually it did. And what I think is that if we, at least for me, if I start and then see how it works, it can work and will work. And what I did, yes, I traveled most of the time, not all the time, to London to listen to the teachings, and I found them extremely beneficial. I tried to prepare for the weekends by reading the text, and that honestly, that that helped very little, because I understood very, very little from this text. And that it made me realize how right His Holiness was when saying or answering the question whether you can reach enlightenment without a guru. He said, yes, it is possible, but a guru can spare a lot of time. And that's so true. When listening to these teachings on this text, made it possible for me to understand that without these teachings, I couldn't have understood this text at all, or just very little, very, very superficial. And it made me such a great depth I didn't imagine before, really, even on easier, so-called easier texts as Lamrim. And then forget the ornament. I didn't understand the word when I reading the ornament, not because of my language. I'm not a native speaker in English, but I did understand all the words. But still, when they came together, I didn't understand the meaning. And then these teachings made it all this very, very understandable, and also very, very practical in my daily life. So I am really very grateful to all the teachers and to Lama Zopa Rinpoche for all this program. It gives, in my opinion, just as Alison and Francesca said, it gives such a structure for all these teachings that I don't think, at least I don't know where I could have found anywhere in such a compact form. Well, it is kind of seems to be an exaggeration to say that a 5-year program is in a compact form, but I really think it is in a compact form. And what I also wanted to tell you, I was thinking what to say about my experience, and I did finish all the retreats. And when I started, I wasn't sure I will finish. I wanted to study, and I was interested, but I say, okay, if I'm interested, I will go on, and I will go on, and I will go on. And if it gives me benefit, if it is beneficial, then I will do that. It's not an obligation. It is rather an obligation to myself than to anyone else to finish it if there is an obligation. But I found it extremely useful, and I'd say that each step, each subject gave a lot, very different. And I even started to argue that, look, the 3-month retreat, that's impossible. I have family, jobs, not doable at all, and it is not reasonable to ask. And then I have to, yes, I was wrong. I was playing wrong, because it gave me a lot of benefit, and I tried a bit harder, and I managed to solve it. And yes, my company is alive, my family is here, the world is going around me just as it did before. So I managed to do that. I think most people simply dismiss these opportunities, that it is not doable because it's too hard, but it isn't. But what I think that if I did only 1 or 2 subjects, it would have been also very, very beneficial. Yes, it's a complete program, but if one manages to do 1 or 2 or any of them, it is also incredibly beneficial. I'd say that the benefits are kind of linear. The more you do, the more you get, but it's not exponential, which is good. So if you can do a little bit, then do a little bit, and if you find it useful, do more. How do I find it useful? That's a valid question. Yes, it's knowledge, but yes, I was to some extent interested in the philosophy, but I was more interested how the whole program can change me, because I thought I need change. I need to be more compassionate, more tolerant, more patient. It would be great to be less afraid of death, to understand how it goes afterwards, and where do I come from, and all these things. And yes, it gave me a lot better understanding. And I do believe, at least for myself, and I also hope to the others, that that are in some way in relationship with me, that I did become a better person, more compassionate, more understanding, more tolerant, and I think that's the best. That's the best result, I would say. And if you can do a little bit, then even I think it will give you a little bit benefit. If you can do more, it will give you more benefit. And I think it's a great opportunity to have these teachings from Geshe Namdak, and through all this whole organization we try to put together for you in Jamyang, and I do believe it's a unique opportunity. So I really can highly recommend and say that yes, it is doable. If you have a job, if you have family, and if you have to travel, yes, it is doable. I did it, and I think if someone says no, it's not doable, then I say think about the excuses, whether they are really justified and fundamental, or whether they can overcome or not. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andras. The three of you, you're a wonderful trio. Really appreciate very much your willingness to share your experiences and to share it in a way that's quite personal. And especially, I think, because one of the big question that arises, and I'm sure will arise on many of people who are on this call at the moment, is, what is the benefit of this more in-depth academic study to one's personal life? And I think all three of you have shown in very touching ways that, you've all been transformed at a personal level by this experience. So thank you very much for that. So we've been on the call for an hour, and so we're going to take a 5-minute comfort break. So at 5:05, we'll reconvene, and Rona, who's the BP coordinator, is going to take the screen and talk a little bit about more the practicalities of how this course is going to work. So see you in 5 minutes. Thank you. So Rona, over to you. And first of all, I shared to the rest of the group, Rona is our wonderful basic program coordinator. And when Rona accepted to take on that task, she also thought this was going to be campus only and had no idea it was going to be taken online and there would be such an interest. And very courageously and fearlessly, she didn't back out. So thank you, Rona. And over to you. And let me unmute you.
So hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Yeah, good. So my name's Ronwin Sayer, but that's a bit of a mouthful. So people call me Rona for short. And I wanted to start by thanking Geshe Namdak and everyone who's worked with me to a great extent in putting this program together. I'm incredibly grateful to everyone who supported me through this process. So thank you very much to everyone. And just by way of preface, what I'm going to be talking about in the next few minutes is all based on the assumption that we will be able to have a campus course at Jamyang in London starting in September. If we're still unable to do that because of the COVID-19 restrictions, then we'll be putting together an alternative entirely online delivery for the program. But I won't be talking about that today. So today, my description is based on the ideas around having a campus course and an online delivery of the course as well. So now I'm going to try and do the desktop sharing for the presentation. And this is probably when my PC will collapse and I will vanish, but we'll see. Wonderful. So I hope you can all see that. I shall be putting a copy of the presentation into the chat feed at the end. So if you you won't have to take too many notes as we go along. So you'll need your chat window up so you can pick up the presentation at the end. So we start with this wonderful image of Lord Buddha with all the traditional protectors around. This image is the logo, but it's also really the embodiment and the total summary of the entire basic program, all condensed down into a single picture, where we see Lord Buddha, but we see Lord Buddha in his teaching pose, wearing the robes of a teacher in our tradition. So it really sums up the whole of our program. That didn't work. How do I get to the next page? Oh dear, I don't know. Ah, there we are. Good. So I'm going to talk about the FPMT basic program, which we're going to be delivering at Jamyang Buddhist Centre, London, from autumn 2020 to summer 2026. So I think you all guessed that's what I was going to talk about. And so I'm going to talk about the program. I'll skip over the subjects because Geshe Namdak gave us a wonderful overview of the subjects, but I've put them into the presentation for reference. I'm going to talk about the structure of the program. I'm going to talk about the support that we offer to the students, I'm going to talk about the admission requirements, because you know, you do need to have some background and existing understanding in order to really benefit from the program. I'm going to talk about how you complete and graduate from the program. I'll talk a little about the personal conduct that we will be expecting of the participants, and then what next with this program. How do you, you know, enroll for it, and what's going to happen next. So that's what I'm going to talk about. So we're going to offer the program. Our main original idea, and that's continuing, is that we're going to offer the program as a campus course, and we're also going to offer it as an online course based on live streaming of the teachings for those students who are able to be available at the time of the live streaming. That's the preferred route for remote students. And we'll also make recordings of Geshe Namdak's teachings available, which students who are not able to participate in the live streaming will be able to study and follow in order to follow along with the program. So we're offering the three options. Obviously the campus course is the most preferred one. The online course with live streaming will give the next greatest level of you know, integration and following along with the course, and following the recordings as the third offering. But because this is a program that requires quite a level of commitment, we're only making the program available to students who register in advance. And we would ask that students register for an entire subject at a time. We're not asking you to register for the entire 5.5-year program and pay all the money up front. I don't think that would seem terribly reasonable, but we will be asking students to register for an entire subject at a time. And as a result, we're of the level of commitment that's required for the students. We're not going to really open up this program to drop-in or auditor participation. So we're really not willing to have people dropping in and out for individual weekends of teachings. We do want students to register for an entire subject at a time. Geshe Namdak went through the programs. I went through the different subjects of the program, but as I said, I've just put those in there for reference. So the structure of the program. So we're going to offer the FPMT basic program firstly as a campus course. We will be offering, and the students will be studying the 9 core subjects of the program. Then at the end of that, there's a review and a 3-month Lam Rim retreat to seal the program for the campus program students. And subject to satisfactory completion of the review and the retreat, then students receive the basic program completion certificate. And Francesca and Andras have got theirs already, or going to get them very shortly. And Alison is working hard on hers and should get one in due course. For the online course, the online offering of basic program consists of the same 9 core subjects and a review, but only a 1-month sealing Lamrim retreat at the end. And for the students who study the online course, they receive the basic program home study completion certificate. So there's a different level of commitment to retreat and a different level of certificate offered at the end. And the timetable for the entire course over the whole 5 years, at least it's a draft one at the moment, I've attached that at the end so people can see what periods they'll be busy and when there'll be a break or whatever. And that's attached at the end for reference, but I won't go through that here. So what's going to be the structure of the program? So each subject will be taught over a series of weekends. There'll be 1 per month, spread out throughout the year, but not every month in the year. Geshe Namdak has retreat commitments back in India and other teaching commitments as well. So he's not with us the whole year, and so he will be teaching a series of weekends during the year. And students are encouraged to attend the teachings at Jamyang wherever possible. For students who are taking the campus course, the students who register for the campus course, they're required to attend the teachings in person to be at Jamyang. And the online students, they're required to attend either via the live streaming or via the recordings, and they have to view the recordings within 1 week of the original teaching period, and you'll see why that is in a minute. Students who are unable to attend the teachings as scheduled due to emergencies, family commitments and so on, and we quite understand that things come up. 5 years is a long time, and things will come up. So students who are not able to attend the teachings either in person or online may catch up via the recordings, but really we hope students will only miss no more than 1 weekend per subject block. Because if you miss more than one weekend per subject block, it really becomes quite hard to catch up, because, as I said, this really is quite an intense program. And students who are repeatedly unable to attend the campus or the online sessions may no longer be eligible for the completion certificate. Of course, they can continue with the program, coming along and studying and so on. But if not a sufficient level of attendance is possible for students, then they won't really be eligible for the completion certificate. As several people have already indicated, although this is called a basic program, and compared with Geshe Namdak's 20 years of Geshe studies, it certainly is basic. But I think to position it in terms of Western education, I've got a master's degree in Buddhist studies, and I would say that this course is at the level of a Western master's degree, if not somewhat deeper, because it's going to cover a wide. So I think in terms of the level of study and application required, it's at that level of a Western master's program. But of course, this covers more subjects and goes on for longer. So that's how I would position it if you're thinking about the level of commitment that's required. So what are we going to offer students by way of support? I mean, it's not really practical to just expect students to turn up for the teachings and then go away and beaver away on their own for everything else. So in the first place, for the online students, it is important that they're able to interact with Geshe Namdak. I mean, that's one of the huge benefits of the campus course. There's a great deal of interaction with Geshe. But for those online students who may never be able to visit Jamyang in person, to support them, there will be a live Q&A and meditation session with Geshe, provided for students in each time zone group, because we're thinking of grouping students together based on convenient time zones. And so online students will get an opportunity to have an interactive Q&A with Geshe Namdak in different time zones every month or so. And on a regular basis, a week after each teaching weekend, there will be an online Q&A and meditation session run by the teaching assistants. Now that will be a week after the teaching, so that will require the students all to be up to date by the time that session runs, which is why anyone who is pursuing the program based on the recordings will have to make sure they viewed them all by the, within the week, so that they're up to speed by the time this interactive session comes round. And this will be run more than once each time in order to cater for the groups of students in the different time zones in the way that I explained before. And students must attend these. It's very important that the interactive discussion and Q&A is there to help students deepen their understanding of the subjects. And just through reading and hearing, you don't really develop that understanding, as all three of our graduates have explained. The whole interactive and Q&A and discussion part of the program is extremely important in coming to develop that depth of understanding. And during the periods when Geshe is not teaching, so that's December, January and February, we'll have periodic review sessions, again interactive, where students can come together and discuss amongst themselves and with the teaching assistants the things that they feel they would like to get more depth on, or things that they're unsure about, and so on. And then finally, in an effort to try to support, efforts to reduce climate change and so on, all the study materials will be provided electronically. And we hope that you'll all be able to manage them electronically, but I guess if you have to print them out, well, you have to print them out. So we will be expecting students to have a certain level of understanding before they begin the basic program. And so how will the students achieve, have achieved that level of understanding? So anyone who's already completed or is well on the way to completing the FPMT Discovering Buddhism course, or who completed the Foundation of Buddhist Thought course with Geshe Tashi up till now, these courses will have provided the necessary background for the basic program. As Francesca and I think Alison said, it's still quite a stretch, but really some background is very, very important. Andras as well, very important. And these two courses will have provided the appropriate background. Also, students who've previously completed part of the basic program already, but may not have been able to complete it, are very welcome and will already have the necessary background as well by having been part of the program previously. So students who want to complete the program and may have done some of it elsewhere are very welcome and will have the necessary background. For other students who want to participate, they will need to demonstrate an appropriate level of knowledge gained through practice or experience or study of other programs or whatever. And as part of the process of applying to take part in the course, we'll be discussing this with everyone who applies. So everyone who applies for the course, we'll have a little chat with them. Ooh, what happened there? Someone's drawn a line on my presentation. Was that you, Geshe? That's wonderful. I didn't know you could do that. Great. Okay, yes. So, yes. So, everyone we will be discussing this with. So we want to make sure that, as people said earlier, it can be quite a shock when you first get exposed to this kind of wonderful material. It's incredibly beneficial to study, and we want to make sure that people don't suffer burnout or, intellectual, shock as a result. So we want to make sure everyone understands, and has the appropriate background. And each subject series, so each run through a subject, will finish with a questionnaire, and the teaching assistants who are provided as part of the program at Jamyang will do an assessment of the questionnaire. It's we're going to be making sure through this that everyone's kind of not being completely phased by what they're studying. and then, you know, there'll be feedback and that will enable people in the subsequent review sessions to maybe ask questions or get a recap of things that they haven't quite kept up with or whatever. And the whole teaching program ends with a review that's conducted by the FPMT BP coordinator centrally by the FPMT Learning Centre. So this is the period that Francesca was talking about, when all the students are interacting with each other with these review questions, and then there's an exam at the end, and that's how the teaching part of the program completes. And then to seal the program and strengthen students' motivation and practice, the entire program finishes with a Lam Rim retreat. As other people said earlier, the campus students undertake a 3-month retreat, but that's optionally available in 1-month segments. So if you want to go away and do a 3-month retreat, that's really wonderful. There we are. And online students undertake a 1-month retreat. And then students receive their completion certificates. I explained there's the basic program completion certificate and the basic program home study completion certificate. Students receive their completion certificates on successfully completing the review and the retreat, subject, as I said earlier, to a satisfactory attendance record. So this is an in-depth Buddhist study program, and so we are asking the students to review their personal conduct and practice during the program. So as well as the academic meditation retreat requirements, the program includes a requirement for a certain standard of conduct and practice. So students should conduct themselves in accord, I haven't noticed a typo there, students should conduct themselves in accord with Buddhist ethics based on the 5 lay precepts, the 5 lay vows. So abstaining from killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct and intoxicants. And students are expected to practice awareness of positive and negative states of mind, as one of the particular elements of the program is all about mind and how it works. And so you'll have been able to develop a greater understanding of how the mind works, and that awareness will come out of that naturally. And developing the practice of patience and concern for others. You'll find during the program that the practice of patience for others is in quite high demand, you might find, during the program. So it's not required to take the vows. We just would wish people to follow those 5 guidelines. But if you wish to take them, that's definitely to be encouraged, and we can arrange an appropriate way for you to take the 5 lay vows. Now, basic program students fulfill this requirement for personal conduct by applying themselves to the practice to the best of their ability, sincerely and honestly. We're not going to come around and police you. We're not going to go peeping through your bedroom windows or anything, or giving you a breathalyzer, although we have got one at Jamyang in a cupboard somewhere, just in case we need it. And basic program students assess themselves as to how they're fulfilling these guidelines. But guidance will be offered if students need, any pastoral care about how their conduct is developing during the program. So students should never be afraid to ask about this. So what next? Well, registration for the program opens on the 21st of July. It says that on the web page. And for your diaries, the first 3 weekends are the 5th and 6th of September, the 3rd and 4th of October, and the 31st October and the 1st of November. So anyone who wants to take part can pencil those dates in now. And the program begins with the stages of the path, studying Tsongkhapa's middle length Lam Rim, which, as Geshe explained earlier, we have an initial part of that, then we do some work on tenets, and then we finish off the stages of the path. And there will be a suggested donation for each weekend, subject to status. And no one will be excluded because they cannot afford to participate. It is a suggested donation. And details of the level of the donation, there will be a sponsor level and a participant level, and a level for people on reduced means and Sangha members and various other aspects. And details of all of this will be made available on the 1st of July. We're still working on that because, as you can understand, there's quite a lot to think about. And each subject block, some of the larger subjects come in 2 blocks. Each subject block must be committed to in advance. And the first block consists of 6 weekends. And also, what next? Well, when you've completed the basic program, you can sign up for the master's program, which is even more wonderful. And at least one of our students who's graduating about now from the previous basic program has already signed up for the master's program. That is truly wonderful. Here's an example of a successful basic program graduate. It's actually the Shantideva, the author of the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, which is one of the subject texts. And Shantideva achieves at one point a correct understanding of the nature of reality and levitates up in the air to join Manjushri, and they disappear off while a voice continues reciting the text after Shantideva has achieved this. And that's one of the texts you're going to study. So here is a wonderful example of what might happen to you if you thoroughly understand all of the material in the basic program. It hasn't happened to me yet, but you never know. And there's the timetable that I said I would attach at the end. So that's really what I had to say about the structure of the program and all of the various elements and aspects that are going to make it up. So I hope you found that useful, and I'll attach the program into the chat window. I'll attach the presentation into the chat window in a minute. So thank you everyone, and there'll be a Q&A soon, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rona. That was wonderful. Really on many different levels, but also providing a lot of detail on the structure. And I'm happy to share because you have such great command of all the details, and I think it gives an insight into all that is going on behind the scenes to map out this endeavor for students. And so I'm happy to share for all the students who are considering participating that Rona has accepted to be BP for the 5 years. So when Geshe said yes to the 5-year commitment, then Rona came on board, and so they come as a team, and I think we're in very good hands. I'm very thrilled. So we just have one more person to just share a few words. It'll be brief, and that's I'm going to pass on to Camilo, who's our new spiritual program coordinator. And Camilo will talk a little bit, and this I think will speak especially to the students who are doing it online specifically. Talk a little bit about the vision of how the tech is going to support this sense of community and so forth. So I will pass it on to Camilo and unmute you.
I'm unmuted.
Yeah.
Now. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Hi everybody. As Venerable Fabienne says, I am the new SPC Spiritual Program Coordinator at Jamyang. I'm going to put it on gallery view because I can't see everybody. That's better. Yeah, so, and when she says new, she really means new. It's only been about 2 weeks, but it's a really exciting time to have stepped into this role with the launch of Basic Program. It's funny because when I first discovered Jamyang and FPMT and the Basic Program, I was so excited about the prospect of doing it that I started to look at countries, centers in different countries in the world where they were doing it, and thinking to myself, well, I might just have to move to another country to complete this course. But luckily I don't have to do that, and I have the immense privilege of being able to help facilitate it as well. When I came on as SPC, one of the challenges that I realized I'd have to respond to with the team, which is the same for many organizations and individuals around the world at the moment, is this challenge of having to go online with everything. But also, with the programs that we've been running at Jamyang over the past few months, and the teachings and the and the pujas. You know, I've realized that it's also an incredible opportunity to connect with, you know, the global Dharma family and people all around the world. And it's just been incredible to see the participation. So I'm really excited about it, actually. And the aspiration on my part is to create a really meaningful online experience for those people who are in different countries who aren't able to, you know, take part on campus, whether that's because of, you know, coronavirus or any other reasons. So that you have the same, you know, as close to the same level of interactivity that you would have if you were in person receiving the teachings from Geshe in the Gompa. And the way we're kind of planning to do that and aspiring to do that is by having a virtual classroom. So this would be a hub, you know, a central hub where you would be able to access the teachings and the recordings and your materials, do your assessments, you know, also, you know, have discussions with your peers and the people in your groups, so that you can really use this software to enrich the whole program, whether you're doing it on campus or remotely as well. So that's all I wanted to share with you, really. But I'm really excited to start this journey with you, for those of you that decide to take the plunge with me, and really excited to do the basic program with Geshe. So thank you very much, and thank you to Rona and Jackie and Francesca and Andras and everybody else who has contributed and is helping to keep this thing going, because it takes many hands and a lot of resources and a lot of time and a lot of effort from a lot of people. And it's really amazing the effort that people are going to. So thank you. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Kamla. So we are going to now go to the Q&A session. So to ask a question, raise your virtual hand, the little blue hand. And if you could start with just introducing yourself, where you are geographically, so we can visualize you, and then who your question is for, and your questions. So I'm going to spotlight you, and Stephen, you've been very patient. Hello, Stephen.
Yeah, hello.
Unmuted. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good. Hi. Yes, no patience. I just I get my hand up early on. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much to everyone for the wonderful presentations. And my question, I'm not really sure who it's for exactly. Maybe for Kamlo, maybe for Geshe, but it's relates to, or Rona. It's a question about people who've done part of the study before, because, and then I don't know if it's that useful to get into specific detail, but there was a mention of people who've done some modules before, which is kind of my case. I did one short-lived version of the Masters in Wisdom program that Dharma Tsongkhapa Institute ran, and it was a sort of a shortened version of the basic program. So the question is not so much whether or not it's useful to do the studies again, because I'm sure it is useful to do them many times, but is there any sort of plan or structure about incorporating students who've done part of that study in the past? That's one question. And then there's a question just about the retreats. I was just curious whether online participants would do 1 month and not 3 months, but the kind of completely opposite question is if it's not possible really to do a 1 month retreat, is it possible to split it into 2 weeks, 2 times 2 weeks, or different combinations? Is it possible to discuss that kind of arrangement? Well, so I cheated a little bit with 2 questions. Sorry about that.
We'll let you get away with it. That's great questions, because I'm sure many other people have similar questions. So I'm going to pass on actually for Rona to answer those questions rather. So Rona, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So there were two questions there. I think one is a general one for everybody, an answer. So you'll have to remind me again. I was so busy thinking about the answer to the second question, I probably forgot the first one.
The first question, I guess the basic, the main question is, you know, for the students who've done either as part of the basic program already or something equivalent,
that's
yeah,
right.
how would that be incorporated?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I'll answer the second question first because that's the one that's interesting to everybody. We've had a lot of discussion about retreats and what makes up a meaningful retreat and so on. And really, over all those discussions, it's come down to really 1 month being the minimum for completing the online program, and for the campus program, a 3-month retreat, but able to be fulfilled in 1 month retreat units. So really less than 1 month we don't think makes up really a meaningful retreat. So in order to get the certificate, I mean, you know, one can still do the program and get all the benefits, but if one's not able to fulfill the retreat requirements at the end, then we're not able to provide the certificate really. So, you know, we've discussed that very often over the years. So that's really our position on that. For people who've completed basic program units in the past, then, you know, providing they're able to, when we talk to them about their previous experience, providing they're able to give us some kind of references, you know, to what they've done before, then we're very happy to, you know, to take all of that into account. Yeah.
Okay, but would that taking that into account mean that you wouldn't necessarily have to do those modules again, and it could be like incorporated into the you know, requirements for completion? Or
yes, that's what we're thinking. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And just on the retreats, is there a chance that there would be group retreats organized? Is it, or is it more the idea that people would organize their individual retreat?
Well, when we completed the basic program last time, we didn't have, you know, we didn't have dozens of students, and the number of students who wanted to complete the retreat was quite small. So they have all chosen to do their retreats individually. If we have a group of students who want to do the retreat together, then we have our wonderful Land of Joy Retreat Centre in the Borders in the UK. And I think we would be very interested in organising a group retreat with some support if multiple students wanted to retreat together. Francesca mentioned she'd done one of her individual retreat sessions up at Land of Joy. So yes, we'd want to do that subject to demand, as they say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Stephen. Thank you, Rona. That's a beautiful vision of imagining a group retreat at the end of this program. So we've got Nicola Daniel next. And so Nicola, I'm gonna spotlight the video on you and unmute you. And there you go. So you're on. Welcome, Nicola, if you could just briefly introduce yourself, where you are, and if your question is directed at anyone. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi. Thank you so much for organising this. It's really been helpful. So I'm Nikki. I'm London-based. I'm a mummy, so forgive me if you hear some little sounds in the background there, but that's part of what I wanted to ask about. I'm gearing towards going in the spirit of not worrying too much about completing, although erring on the side of being positive about actually completing a 5-year course. But I'm slightly concerned about the retreat. I think it might be useful to hear maybe from Andras, who said that he had children, and maybe others that might have had a similar sort of experience and how they've kind of managed that. But just in terms of the retreat, I'm wondering if it's unrealistic of me to just think it's just myself and my son. I'm an adopter. So I just don't know whether it's just better to focus on doing the program, but knowing that well, I shouldn't say that because anything could happen. Some wonderful blessing might happen and I may be able to do the retreat. But yeah, is there any just insight as to anyone else that might have been in this situation, maybe? Sorry if it's a bit personal and not necessarily relevant to lots of others, but maybe there might be others.
It's a great question, absolutely. I'm sure it's a question that comes up, and you pointed to Andras, and I think he's a really good person to answer that, because as you say, he has a family and children and manage it. So I'm going to pass it on to Andras. Thank you so much. And Andras, let me unmute you. Here we go. Yep, yes. You're on, Andras.
Yes, good. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Yes, I'd remain on the practical side. Now the retreat requirement is at the end of the 5 years. So I don't think you should worry about that now. In 5 years, many things can happen. Yeah. And how I took it was that I always took to the next step. I didn't think I'll be able to do 3 one-month retreats because of my family and job and so on and so forth. But in 5 years, people can get used to a lot of ideas, and also to the idea that I'm away for a month, and also can start like this idea that it might not be that bad to go away and then to come back, because it can give a lot to both to the kids. I have relatively small kids, and they are 9, 14, and 15, so they're not very big, but still they understood. And I truly believe that if you have kids, you're even more need in such a program, so that of course that you can educate them, but that's step 2. First, to educate yourself. At least that's how I'm feeling, that I need a lot of patience, understanding, and compassion in order to be together with the kids and to educate them, to bring them up. And the program gave me a lot of support for this. And yes, the retreat requirement is quite a lot, but you can do it at the end, and you can take it as you want. So like 1 month in a year and then another month in a year. But probably the most important is that don't worry about it now. It will solve itself. If you feel like starting the program because you think it will be beneficial for you, for your kids and family, start it, and the retreat will solve itself after 5 years.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, and thank you, Nicola, for this great question. So we've got Debbie is next. So Debbie, I am going to spotlight you. Hello, Debbie, and I'm going to unmute. Yes, go ahead, Debbie. Oh, hold on. Let's try again. Go ahead, Debbie.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm Debbie, as you gathered, and I'm in central London. I hope you can hear me above 2 helicopters outside. And my question is for Geshe, and I'll try not to be too long-winded with it. Rather like Stephen's question, I did a course with Lama Yeshe at Kopan in 74-75, and that was an amazing learning and also amazing experience from that. And I absolutely don't pretend to have it taped, and I'm very conscious that there's a lot of other people here with, with backgrounds in this. But equally, I've just had a very big birthday. I'm conscious I'm getting older and I don't have the most brilliant family history medically. So I'm trying to, I'm feeling very committed, but I'm trying to sort of think out what would be the best way to make use of the time I have. And I've heard Geshe and I think everyone else sort of say that it has the name basic, but it's actually quite in depth and goes on to Vajrayana and a chance for new insights and review. And so I'm trying to think whether I do this, or whether I should try to focus on what I already have, which may not be that easy to define, and build on that. And then I have the challenge of finding a route through and trying to find a structure out of it. So basically I am feeling very inadequate about all this and very rusty. But I'm wondering, having had the privilege of that time with Lama Yeshe and age and the like, whether 5 years on Lam Rin is or whether I should try and take the opportunity to challenge myself with some other things. And I don't say that, I say that with total humility. As I said, I feel rusty and inadequate and all the rest of about it, but it's just in terms of finding a route through for myself, and hopefully it'll apply to some other people too. I don't know, the best use, and if you know, and I do, you know, I've forgotten some of the details, but then sometimes the details and the facts aren't always the most important thing. I'll stop there, and thank you. And I hope I mean that with all sort of humility and feeling inadequate about it all too. I don't mean to be sounding arrogant in any way. It's just trying to feel how I should pitch myself and how I should find a route through it, really.
Thank you. Thank you for the generosity of your question, actually, Debbie, because again, I think a number of other people have a similar question. So I'm going to pass it on to Geshe and let him answer that. And I'm going to unmute Geshe. Go. Hold on. Unmute. Go ahead, Geshe.
Right. Yeah, that's okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. So yeah, 5 years. When you can imagine when I started a 20-year program, how I felt in the beginning, right? So that means that one aspect is the 5-year program. You take one thing at a time. Same when we started in a monastery. In the beginning, you look to halfway through and it's kind of huge distance, right? But before you know it, you're there. I mean, 5 years will pass anyway, if you do this program or not. And time goes very fast. Life is very precious. And, you know, sometimes you think, oh, it's too difficult, and opportunity goes, right? So it's an incredible opportunity if you can dedicate time to build more upon understanding of the Lam Rim you have right now, right? So it's a little bit more in depth. It's called basic program, but as we said, is in depth. So there's one thought you can think about a long term. Yeah, another aspect, as we're going to offer also every subject. Yeah, people can commit to one subject at a time. So that's also a possibility, right? So then you have to see what is lying within your capacities of developing a more in-depth understanding of the Lam Rim, as you already have some understanding of the Lam Rim, but this course will give a more in-depth understanding of the Lam Rim as well as related subjects. So if you study those other related subjects, you will understand the Lam Rim itself much better. You know, so that's the individual choice, right? So we're going to start with Lam Rim, so that might be an opportunity for some people who find it very difficult to do the whole 5 years. And at least you can commit to one subject, which is, for example, the Lam Rim itself, yeah, the middle length Lam Rim. So there's one aspect, and the other aspect is, you know, long-term view. You know, I see myself also as a Westerner, we're very short-sighted. And we think about a Buddhist path, we think about eons or lifetimes, right? So then 5 years basically is peanuts compared to, you know, 3 countless eons or you know, just study for a decade or 2, right? So in that regard, if you have a long-term view, 5 years will pass anyway, if you do the program or not. Yeah, so in that regard, you have to make personal choice. Yeah, we offer this as people can do individual subjects, you know, completed blocks, or sign up for the whole complete program as well, the 5 years. So that's based on the individual kind of wishes and aspirations and capacity. But of course, what I said before, if you do the whole program, that has more benefits because you get a complete overview of the Lam Rim as well as related subjects. Yeah. So I hope it's a little bit more clear in those two possibilities, either individual subjects at a time or doing the complete package. Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe. So Jenny and Dave are next in line, so I'm gonna spotlight you and unmute you. Okay, Jenny, you're on.
Hello, thank you very much. I don't know why the computer's called Jenny and Dave, although Dave is my partner, but there we are. So I've got two questions, if that's okay. So the first one, would it be possible to do a mixture of both campus and online? I'm based in Sheffield, so I'm aware that Jamyang Leeds is looking at doing something in January. So, you know, wait and see. Yeah. So the first thing is, would it be possible, despite what's happening with COVID, to do a mix of both campus and online? That's the first question. And the second question, how would the basic program compare to not discovering Buddhism, Foundation of Buddhist Thought, which I've completed a couple of times? So that's the two questions, thanks.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm going to pass that question to Rona to answer. I'm going to,
okay, thanks.
And then unmute. Go ahead, Rona.
Yes, thank you, Jenny. Yes, any students studying the course online are welcome to come to Jamyang, yes, and attend it in person. That's highly encouraged. So yes, that would be wonderful. And the second question.
How does it compare? How does it
Oh, basically
FBT?
FBT, yes. Well, FBT and Discovering Buddhism kind of are introductory courses. So this will give you a much more in-depth understanding of some of the subjects that you covered in FBT. It's certainly at a much, at a more profound level than was covered in FBT. So yes, well worth pursuing if you found the more challenging aspects of FBT very interesting. Yes. Thank you.
So I'm seeing we're actually reaching the end, and I want to really honor people's times. And so there are some questions left. I see many hands up. And so hopefully a lot of the questions will be answered by the information that we'll be sharing on the BP page on the Jamyang website. And I think many of you have signed up for the list, the email list related to BP, where we will share a lot of the frequently asked questions and so forth. If you don't find answers to your questions there and you have more questions, you can send us an email. And Kamlo, I'm going to apologize. I'm going to give your email, spc@jamyang.co.uk. And Kamlo will then dispatch the questions to the relevant people. So sign up for the email list, which can be found on the Jamyang website. If you haven't done so already, check the website, and if not, do send us an email. So I'm going to pass on back to Geshe to do a closing. I'm going to unmute you. Oh no. To do the closing dedications for this open house. And then from my side, I want to thank all of you for taking the time and for your interest in this sizable commitment. And we really, really look forward to supporting you in this study. And so over to Geshe.
Right, so thank you very much, everybody, for their interest. And then, yeah, you check yourself. That's what the Buddha said, you know. Don't accept whatever has been said. Analyze and see if it's the right program for you or not. So that's based on the individual's wish, time, and aspiration, so to say. we talked a lot about the benefits of it, so then you can examine if it's really true or not, listening to those who have done already the program, for example. And yeah, as I said before, it's an incredible opportunity. So that we discuss it by itself, that you have shown interest in something like this is already a sign of having some incredibly good karma created in the past, right? Otherwise you will never generate interest towards these kind of matters. So then if you decide to do the program or not, at least we can make a kind of dedication or a prayer that in the very near future that we, and all sentient beings as well, may be able to meet these kind of programs and teachings and be able to have the ability to study it, put it into practice and get realizations of the stages of the path to enlightenment. And well, for the purpose of not only achieving happiness and liberation yourself, but for the purpose of all sentient beings. Yeah, so try to dedicate in those lines. Yeah, I recite 3 verses in relation with the 3 principal aspects of the path of generative initiation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. Ngejung samba rinpoche magye panang gegye chik kyaba nyamba meba yang gone gonde baba jo janjo semjo rinpoche magye panang gegye chik kyaba nyamba meba yang gone gonde baba jo toni tawa rinpoche magye panang gegye chik kyaba nyamba meba yang gone gonde baba jo. And especially also for the long and healthy life of His Holiness Dalai Lama, being an incredible kind of embodiment of this tradition, and it's an incredible example. And also His Holiness puts a lot of emphasis, you know, on these kind of programs to be studied, you know, to uphold the Dharma for self and others, you know. So that's incredible example also to take into account, right? So pray for His Holiness long and healthy life and all His Holiness wish contained fulfilled. Kare rawe korwe singan so pendan dewa malu jungwe chenre zegwan tenzeng gyatso yi shape shite badu tengyo chik. And then to conclude, yeah, that's oneself, all sentient beings, not only in this life, but also in all future lifetimes, be able to study and put these kind of things into practice. And then gradually, of course, we will get the realizations of the path to enlightenment and become a supreme being or an Arya being and a Buddha ourselves in order to be of more benefit for all sentient beings without exception. Yeah, so that's the last dedication. Gyawa Gunda Yanda Lama Dan Dhamma Chedan Beldam Sadan Langi Yunda Rabzone Doje Changi Kopan Yudu Shun. All right, thank you very much for all your interest and maybe see you soon or, you know, maybe not in basic program, maybe not the events, but yeah, thank you very much for your interest and yeah, maybe see you soon. Thanks so much. Thank you very much. And also the team, thank you very much everybody for this wonderful afternoon we had together. Yeah, it was like nice to be a part of that. So thank you also everybody for the interest and the team for all the efforts in making this happen and for the commitments they give for the coming 5 years. Okay, thank you very much. And then, yeah, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Geshe. And I'm going to unmute everyone for a moment of cacophony and goodbye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Al. Thank you so much. Lots of love. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.